This is a Gear Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy, Mr. Perez, and you're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, brought to you exclusively on Gear Network. Listen in.
Friends of the podcast, welcome to the Better Live Than Dead Super Bowl Preview.
That's right.
I believe this would actually be episode 27.
26.5?
27.
27?
I think we did when we did the World Series, it was an extra episode. We'll just say it's 27.
Okay.
Super Bowl Preview. New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks.
Yes.
In the following podcast, you're going to hear an interview. Myself with a New England Patriots blogger.
That'll be fun.
A Seattle Seahawks blogger.
That'll be fun.
Check it out. Stick around. A lot of fun stuff coming up here.
That's right.
On a special Super Bowl preview of the Better Live Than Dead podcast. When we get back from this commercial break, I will be joined by Greg Knopping of Pats Pulpit. Talk to New England Patriots. Talk Deflategate, Ballghazi, whatever you want to call it. I think Deflategate is dumb, but, it's catchy.
I don't mind Deflategate. I think Ballghazi is kind of stupid.
Well, because there's if you're on Twitter,
right, there's
a lot of Benghazi jokes.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's the hot topic, if you will.
Still,
it's a joke. A ha ha ha.
Well, people died, so it's not real funny.
That's not funny. I didn't say that was funny. Don't put words in my mouth.
I did it.
When we get back, we'll talk to Patriots.
You're insensitive prick.
Wow. And then after we talk to Patriots, Perez and myself will return for a special halftime segment. And then after that, we'll talk with the Seahawks blogger. We'll wrap things up.
Special halftime segment. No wardrobe malfunctions on our part.
No wardrobe malfunctions. I hope not.
Not from us.
When we get back here in the Better Live Than Dead podcast, more of the Super Bowl preview.
Yes.
Stick around. While you're listening to this podcast, make sure you follow us on social media. You can follow me at WolfSHC on Twitter. You can also follow Mr. Perez at MRLG Perez. Make sure to like the podcast on Facebook. That's facebook.com/BLTD podcast. And make sure to follow Gear Network on Twitter at GERE Network. Perez, I must ask you.
What would I ask me?
How did you do this year in fantasy football?
Man, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, guess what?
I don't want to talk about it, man.
I've got good news for you.
What?
FanDuel
allows
you to win all that money back that you lost.
That's good because I lost a lot of money
in fantasy football. But here's the catch.
What's the catch?
Fantasy hockey, fantasy basketball, 1 week leagues.
That doesn't sound like a catch to me.
You can win a lot of money.
I like that.
Just like you did with the fantasy football on FanDuel, you can win it with hockey, with basketball. Check it out, GearNetwork.com/FanDuel. You get the money on FanDuel. You help us out over at the Gear Network. We get money, you get money. Everybody's happy, and Perez is happy because he won all that money back.
I'll be real happy about
fantasy football, which he lost because, Perez is really bad at fantasy football.
Oh, man, don't even talk about it.
Touchdown, Patriots! Blood, force, trauma. Nobody wants to go home. You want to sit in traffic all night long as you get ready for the Super Bowl.
Welcome back to the Better Live Than Dead podcast, a Super Bowl preview. Joining me now on the FanDuel hotline, Greg Knopping of Pats Pulpit. You can follow them on Twitter at Pats Pulpit. That's PULPIT. And check out their website, patspulpit.com. First, before we get into questions, Greg, how are you doing today?
Not bad. How are you, Ryan?
Doing good. Thank you for joining me. We got some fun stuff to talk about. I'm sure you are thrilled. At least you're going to be thrilled after this first question. The elephant in the room, per se, Deflategate, if you want to call it that. I think that's a stupid name to be completely honest. But mainstream media found a catchy title and ran with it. But the NFL confirms that there were deflated balls today. Today being Thursday, Bill Belichick came out and denied any knowing of what was going on. Said he'll have to talk to Tom Brady, who's supposed to speak later today. So by the time this comes out, we'll probably know a little more. But at this point, what is a perspective from a New England Patriots fan, from you being a blogger, being a fan? How do you see the situation unfolding?
Well, to speak from the fan perspective, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, you want the narrative to be about what a team has accomplished, what they've done. And we've run into this situation before. It was there in 2007. And I think that there's generally, maybe around the league and just around the NFL in general and fans and stuff, there's kind of a negative perception of Patriots fans in the sense that, oh yeah, but they always make the excuse, but everybody does it, everybody does this, everybody does that. And everyone was for Corey Singles, but they were made the scapegoat. And yes, I get that argument, but you come around the second time, and you kind of have to ask, I understand that this ultimately might not be that big of a deal, but you have to ask yourself, to the fans, do they really have to try and justify themselves again? And, one of our co-writers, Alex Shane, he actually had a great argument. He kind of related it to, say, you're on the highway and the speed limit's 65 miles an hour. And you can get away with going 70, 75 all the time. All the cars on the road are doing it. You're getting away with it. That's fine. Now, say you get pulled over. You get a ticket. The cop now says, okay, I know you. I know your car. You can no longer get away with going 75 on a 65. So you get pulled over, you're going to get a bigger ticket. Maybe he gave you a warning or something like that. And it's kind of the same way, with the Patriots, because you saw everything with Spygate, and, that was like, okay, fine, who cares if everyone was doing it? You made an example of you got to tiptoe the line a lot more careful. And, I don't want to jump to conclusions because I think people are being a little bit impatient in that regards. There's, plenty of people that are already, saying that, the whole Brady-Belichick era is a sham or whatever, and I think that's ridiculous. But at the same time, if it comes out to be that these allegations are true and it's looking worse and worse, by the day, it begs the question.
Well, in the one way that I saw it best explained, being a Boston Red Sox fan myself, is back when the Red Sox got the big stink across Major League Baseball because pitchers like Clay Buchholz were openly using sunscreen to get better grip in the ball. I see it as that because every quarterback has his own specific way he likes the ball to be. That's why the NFL lets the quarterbacks prepare the balls because a while back the reason it happened was because the quarterbacks were so mad that the balls were just very rock-like and they couldn't get a good grip on the ball and it was affecting their performance.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. I mean, you look at, around the league, who's coming out in support of New England. It's mostly been, coaches and quarterbacks. And they're saying, well, this isn't a big deal. It's something that happens before. But I go back to, what I was saying earlier. When you are New England now and you have Spygate on your resume, you have to be more careful with these types of things. You have to be proactive in sorting these situations out. I don't know yet if they were doing something that that was illegal or against the rules or whatever. I don't care if other teams are doing it. You have to realize who you are and the standard that you're going to be held to because of this. And that's kind of been my take. I think you're saying?
In the grand scheme of things, it seems like an oversight that they were comfortable doing it, and then they got busted and went, oh crap, how are we going to deal with this?
Yeah,
okay.
and I think from an on the field perspective, I don't think it makes much difference at all. Which is, I saw one of the ESPN Sports Science things on it, and it was saying like it would maybe affect a downfield pass by up to 1 inch, 0.003 seconds, 3/1000th of a second. But, it doesn't look like it makes that big of a deal. And the other thing I go back to is, and Belichick mentioned it in his press conference, is the amount of work that they do in practice to doctor up the football in poor conditions. So they'll take a hose, get the ball completely wet and soaked, and that's going to actually make the ball heavier than any difference in, inflation or deflation would. And they'll do all of that just to be prepared for this. So it's just, it's surprising that they would do this, but if there really is a deal where they are, they're presenting the balls to the refs, and within that, that 2-hour window before the start of the game, they are doctoring the footballs, they are deflating them outside of the normal, let's rough them up a little bit. They're gonna, it's gonna come down on them, and it's gonna come down pretty hard, in my opinion.
Now, moving on to more exciting things, I should say. It's the first Super Bowl appearance for the Patriots since 2011. How do you believe this one plays out differently for the Patriots?
It's tough because I do think it's I think at least on paper, it's a more difficult matchup than the New York one was. I think that the Seahawks match up pretty well with the Patriots. I think that, New England, they've done a good job recently. They had some struggles earlier in the year when they had, Silver Slinga, he was out. with injury early in the year, and since then they've gotten him back. They've had a strong three-man line, a two-gapping line of Vince Wilfork, Alan Branch, and Soinga. And, it's been a solid group, but at the same time, the last 2 weeks in the playoffs, particularly the Ravens game, some of those big guys, they just haven't had, the leverage you'd want to see out of, 330-pound mammoths. So, their linebacker play is just as good as Seattle's and with Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower, but, I think Seattle's going to be able to do some things in terms of running the football, using the play action. Brandon Browner, I'm not really sure he has a great fit in terms of, if the Patriots want to go man-to-man, they'll probably end up on Luke Wilson on the tight end. Offensively, I think the Patriots can run the ball. And, in the secondary, there aren't a lot of great matchups, but, as you've seen in recent weeks, the Patriots can get very creative. So, I think they will ultimately be able to put up some points.
If you're just joining us, Greg Knopping of Pats Pulpit is on the line to talk to New England Patriots in their Super Bowl appearance coming up. Now, Greg, who do you believe will have to be the Patriots' X factor when they look to win this game?
I'm going to go right back to what I was just talking about. I think the X factor is going to be Vince Wilfork. And, he's honestly, when I cast my PFWA votes this year, I went with Wilfork as my comeback player of the year over Gronkowski because he's listed at 325, but he's probably easily 350 plus. Coming back from an Achilles injury in his 30s, played all 16 games this year, was playing at maybe not a 2011 or 2012 level, but he was playing at a very high level this year. And it's kind of, his play has slipped a little bit the last couple of weeks. He's seen a little bit of a higher workload, particularly not last week, but, a couple of weeks before that. If he can control the middle, if he can take on under, he can take on double teams and, free it up for Hightower and Collins. I think the Patriots might go a lot of base. If he can do his job, that's going to make stopping Marshawn Lynch a lot easier for the Patriots defense. So if I had to say my number one X factor, it's going to be the play of Vince Wilfork. Is he ready to go? Is he rested? Is he, able to play probably 50-plus productive snaps and really hold his ground and push the pocket a little bit too?
Now, I know you're a Patriots fan, so this may be a little bit of a biased answer, but for just a second, take off your Patriots hat and try to answer this as kind of level as possible. Are we seeing currently the greatest quarterback and head coach in the history of the National Football League?
If you asked me in a week and a half, I'd probably be able to say it a little bit more unbiasedly, but I've got Brady right there with Montana. I ultimately think, Super Bowls and legacies, they probably carry a little bit more weight than they should. But until, Brady gets number 4, if he falls to 3-3 in the postseason, it's kind of, in the Super Bowl, it's kind of a little bit difficult to give him that crown. I would give it to Belichick. I've never seen anyone with the ability to not only, doctor a game plan, but more importantly, build a team, a team built to do specific jobs quite like he has. So Brady, I say he's right there, probably a 1B to Montana right now. And, and Belichick is, he's right there with the Shulas and the Lombardis, and it's hard to really rank him behind any of them. It's probably going to come down to personal preference. So, now,
last question before we let you go: what are the Patriots' keys to victory in Super Bowl 49?
I'm going to say the biggest key to victory is going to be protecting Tom Brady up front. We don't know if Stork is going to be playing the rookie center. Josh Klein did a very good job, particularly in the running game. But he's going to need to, keep it up, keep the interior pressure off of Brady. We saw that the last 2 Super Bowls. It's one of those things where it's like you keep saying, is it really true? Yeah, it is. Brady plays significantly better when he can trust his protection. We saw that during that big winning streak in the middle of the season where, Brady's line gave up, I think it was 3 sacks and close to 200 pass attempts or something like that. If he can have a level of confidence in his offensive line, I think the offense will move. I think the Patriots can put up points. And defensively, I go back, Wilfork, Soliga, point of attack. That's going to be the key for me. Linebacker play, and the other thing I would say would be Chandler Jones on the edge. He's been a little bit inconsistent in that area. He's a little bit like Terrell Suggs in the fact that he'll kind of, do a little bit of his own thing when it comes to defending the run. He might do a spin move that kind of gives up some of his leverage. If he can, maintain on the edge, put some good pressure on Russell Wilson, I think the Patriots have a shot. I think it's gonna be a very close game, and it's tough for me to pick at this point. I'm not sure if I want to do that yet, but I think there are some things the Patriots can do that can help them come away victorious.
Well, hopefully for your sake, it's a good game. I'm hoping it's a good game because I'm a Bills fan, so obviously I'm anti-Patriots, but if it's a good game, I don't care who wins, to be completely honest. But I want to say first off, thank you for joining me here on the Super Bowl preview of the Better Live Than Dead podcast. You are obviously Greg Knopping of Pats Pulpit at Pats Pulpit on Twitter, patspulpit.com. That's PATSPULPIT.com. Check it out. They are also he's also a very good follow on Twitter. Thank you again, Greg, for joining me today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
This free and independent sportscast is made possible when you shop the Gear Network store through Amazon. Visit GearNetwork.com and click on the Amazon banner to shop through Amazon's thousands of products at great prices delivered right to your front door. Again, that's GearNetwork.com and click the Amazon banner at the top. Do you enjoy listening to Better Live Than Dead, but you're not always by your laptop to hear it on GearNetwork.com? Not to worry, we've got you covered. Better Live Than Dead and all other Gear Network podcasts can now be heard on iHeartRadio, iTunes, in the Zune Marketplace, on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher Radio, and on TuneIn Radio. So make sure you get one of the aforementioned apps to stay up to date with the latest Gear Network podcasts.
This is how we do, yeah. Chillin' laid back, straight stuntin', yeah, we do it like that. This is how we do, do. This is how we do. This is how we do, yeah. Chillin' laid back, straight stuntin', yeah, we do it like that. This is how we do, do.
Back here on the Better Live Than Dead podcast, our halftime segment led in by the wonderful Katy Perry, who just so happens to be performing at halftime of the Super Bowl.
Yes, that's right.
Do you like how I did that?
That was a good job.
Do you see what I did there?
I see what you did there.
There's this method to my
madness.
Now, before every Super Bowl, there's a big craze with the prop bets.
Yes.
Always a lot of fun because they're always ridiculous. Now,
okay.
I myself have done some research, and we're going to talk some prop bets now in this halftime segment.
Let's do it.
Sportsbook.ag has the following bets. And thank you to SBNation.com for doing the dirty work, getting us the details.
Yes.
First off, what color, being the color being the main color of the hoodie, what color hoodie will Bill Belichick wear? The options are gray, which the Patriots have a much better record with gray.
Right.
Or blue, which Bill Belichick has worn throughout the entire 2015 postseason.
Right.
What do you think?
I'm going gray.
I think I'm going to go blue, just because superstition, you don't mess it up.
Right.
No matter what, you don't mess it up. Because like
True.
the one time the Patriots played and they wore a specific color, and the Super Bowl showed up, he wore red. And you're kind of like,
which was weird.
Yeah, red cutoff sleeves. What are you doing? Speaking of cutoff sleeves, what style hoodie will Bill Belichick wear? Sleeves, which there's no details for that one, or the sleeves cut, which the last time they played in Arizona in the Super Bowl, he wore sleeves cut, as mentioned, the red hoodie. What do you think? I'm going sleeves cut.
I'm going with, sleeves cut works.
Why would you wear sleeves in Arizona?
Right, it's warm.
Now on to the length of the national...
It's a dry heat.
The length of the national anthem. Idina Menzel of Frozen fame, or Rent, maybe if you like Rent. She was in Rent too, which is also really good.
Okay.
Will the national anthem be over 122.5 seconds or under 122.5 seconds? Now, mind you, she performed at the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. The anthem was 1 minute and 59 seconds. Which would be the under.
Right.
So I'm going to take the under.
This is the Super Bowl, so it's a bigger event, technically, than the last one she was at. So I'm going to take the over.
Okay. Now, moving
especially if she throws in some Frozen stuff in it.
She starts singing "Let It Go," man.
Right. I've never seen the movie, so I don't know.
Let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old niece, so I've seen
it like a whole bunch of times. I'm sure.
A handful of times, yeah. Had to sing the song, had to do the dance, whatever.
She's a cutie. She looks like a handful. She looks like she'd be fun.
She's a monster.
I bet.
I have to go over some time and sing "Let It Go." You could check it out. What will Katy Perry be wearing during her first song? The options are dress/skirt or pants/shorts/other.
I'm going with nothing.
Okay, that's not an option, but that would be other. So then you pick that one. Okay. I picked the dress skirt option. That just seems more logical. We're not going Janet Jackson here.
I would like her to go Janet Jackson there.
I'm sure you and many other people would.
Yes.
But for now, We're just
I'm going to go with she's coming out with some type of weird outfit, so I'm going to go other.
Okay, that's fine. Our friend, Marshawn Lynch, crazy man.
Yes.
Doesn't like the media very much.
No.
Will he be fined by the NFL for media day incident, yes or no?
Probably.
I'm going to say no, because last year,
Was he fined $100,000?
No, last year was where the NFL Network found him standing off to the side of the arena, hiding by the wall with a bunch of people, and then he said, I'm all about that business, boss.
Right.
And that was
That
was his thing.
Yeah.
So I say no.
I'm going to go with probably, yes.
Okay, so you go yes.
At least once. Or I'm going to go with a warning. I'm going to go with a warning.
Because they have been finding him a lot this season.
Yes.
So we'll see. The coin toss result, this one is legitimately 50-50. It's a 49th Super Bowl, 48 games previously.
Yes.
24 heads, 24 tails. I'll say heads.
I'm going to go with tails.
Okay.
What was last year's?
I think it was tails. Last year was tails.
I'm going to go with heads.
Seahawks won tails last year, I believe.
I'm going to go with heads.
I'm sure you are. Will the coin toss winning team win the game?
I tried not to make any comment. You went there.
Yes, with the option. 5 of the last 7 teams that win the coin toss have won the Super Bowl. Patriots are 2 of the 7 that haven't in Super Bowl 46, and Arizona in Super Bowl 43. Or no. I'm going to say yes. You win the toss, you win the game.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, hey, that's a tough one.
Well, because if you say no, you're bucking the trend.
Right. I'm going to say no.
Okay, fair enough. Now, this one, according to Bovada.
Unless the team I want to win wins.
True. Now, this is according to Bovada. Because they came out with the comprehensive prop bet list, but only one of them popped out to me. Will Marshawn Lynch grab his crotch after a touchdown, yes or no? I'm going with emphatic yes.
I'm going to go with no, because he doesn't want to get fined again.
You may be onto something with that. Because he was going to wear the gold cleats last game against the Packers.
Right.
And they said, we will sit you down if you wear that. And so he changed them.
They were still gold.
Well, yeah, on the bottom.
Right.
But they had enough of the main color necessary to not get fined. But, you might have a point there. But I'm just going all in. I
understand.
Got nothing to lose.
No doubt. It's not like we're...
It's his style, too. It's his style. He grabs a junk and goes and eats a bag of Skittles.
That's right.
What's wrong with that?
Depends on the sequences in which you do that.
Eat Skittles, grab your crotch, whatever. Do what you got to do, man. You do you, Marshawn Lynch.
Grabbing your crotch while you're eating Skittles?
Don't let the man hold you down.
That's right.
Enjoy yourself. Have fun. We're going to enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yes.
I know that. We're going to talk more about Super Bowl on next week's episode 28 of the Better Live and Dead podcast.
That's right.
Next week. But we talked about it on episode 26. Looks like it's going to be a good game.
I agree. I believe it's going to be a fantastic game.
Prop bets aside, it'll be phenomenal.
As long as the Seahawks didn't look like they looked in the first 3 quarters.
Yeah, well, Russell Wilson, and we'll talk, like I said, we'll talk more about this
Packers
last week, but Russell Wilson has struggled.
Yes.
He's been there when he needs to be there, but he's struggled, so we'll
they can't do that against the Patriots.
No. They will not let you live that one
No.
down. Now, when we come back from this commercial break, I will be speaking with Jacson Bevens of Field Gulls. Field Gulls, I'm sorry. Not Field Gulls. Field Gulls. Gulls. Talking about the Seattle Seahawks. Some big injuries. Back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. And how in the hell did they beat the Packers?
Right.
We're going to get a first-hand account. Stick around.
Listen in, people.
For that and more. Here on the Better Live Than Dead Super Bowl Preview exclusively on the Gear Radio Network.
John Cimino here, a.k.a. JC Money, inviting you all of you listeners, to join us on the Gear Radio Network once a week for Get Ready America, where JC and DC, the executive producer, my co-host Don Cimino, will be talking news, sports, whatever comes to our mind. It's a variety show that goes all over the place. It's awesome. You should check it out on Gear Network every week. A successful product does not become a successful product on its own. Look at the Gear Radio Network, for example. We're a prime example. We had a lot of help getting here, and we can help you get where you want to go to. Advertising rates are very low to start off here on the Gear Radio Network. Visit us at gearnetwork.com. Click on the contact link to send us an email, and we can work out the details. Again, Advertise your product across all of the forums at a low, low rate here on the Gear Radio Network.
Wilson toward the end zone. It is caught! Seattle's going to the Super Bowl. Jermaine Kearse.
And we're back here on the Better Live Than Dead Super Bowl Preview podcast. Joining me now live on the FanDuel hotline, he is Jacson Bevens of Field Gulls, at Jacson Bevens, JACSON BEVNS. You can also check him out over at fieldgulls.com/cigar-thoughts, like a minus sign between those two, where he has a weekly podcast. Just so happens to be he enjoys cigars, Mr. Perez enjoys cigars, so it's like a match made in podcast town over here. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Really appreciate you having me on.
Well, yeah, thank you for joining us. And now the question that because we did record our most recent episode of the Better Live Than Dead podcast, and the one thing that first off, he did want me to mention to you that he says hello because I told him about cigars and he got really excited, so he does say hello.
What's up, man?
we wanted to ask about the only way to put it is how the hell did Seattle beat Green Bay in the NFC Championship game?
You know, it's 6 days and I'm still not sure. It's a reminder that when you get this many elite athletes, and every team has elite athletes on it, but I think Seattle is definitely one of the more talented rosters in the NFL over the last few years. And it took them 55 minutes to all get on the same page, but it just shows what is capable when you have that many elite athletes doing their job at that level. You can make up 12 points in 5 minutes without having the ball, and that is really, really remarkable. I've always prided myself in being a not until there's triple zeros on the clock kind of fan, but when they threw that fourth interception and Green Bay had the ball with, I think, like 5 minutes and 7 seconds left in Seattle territory up by 12, and Seattle's offense hadn't even scored a point up until that, I started writing a season-ending article, and about 20 minutes later, I had to delete it all.
Well, I guess for your sake, it's a good thing you had to delete it.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's crazy to look back now and see that fourth interception you mentioned. The fact that the guy who intercepted the ball went right down, that was kind of really the turning point of the game.
Yeah, it was,
madness.
and it was. And it's interesting because a lot of folks have kind of faulted McCarthy for playing it safe and, Burnett for just going down when he got that interception instead of trying to take it back and all these things. And all of those are only the wrong decisions because they lost. I mean, he played the averages. I think the win probability was like 97% at that point. But what happened was super conservative on offense. That turnover only cost Seattle, I think, less than a minute in time of possession. Got the ball back, and finally things started clicking. And the coolest part about it, I think, was just how redemptive that win was for Jermaine Kearse. I'm sure if you were watching the game, the announcers pointed out that all four of Russell Wilson's interceptions came on the first 4 times he targeted Jermaine Kearse. And on 2 of them, they went off Kearse's hands, and on a third one, Kearse gave up position on a jump ball. And for him to be able to trust Kearse in overtime like that is pretty remarkable. And there's actually this clip of him talking to Darrell Bevell, the offensive coordinator, of Russell Wilson, talking to him. And it was after the coin toss, and he goes, "Hey, we're going to win this on a seam route to Kearse." Like, that's what he says to Darrell Bevell at the beginning of the drive. And then he goes over to Jermaine Kearse and goes, "Be ready, you're going to catch the game winner." Like, it was a pretty remarkable amount of belief in what was going to happen.
It's amazing. I can't imagine, like, watching it. I was blown away, but being a fan of it, I don't know if I could handle it.
Well, Patriots had their share of pretty amazing wins over the last, how many years you guys been winning now? 12 years, 13? something like that. But yeah, it's, this, as far as being Seahawks fans, our team has only mattered nationally for the last 3 years. And so, this is a tremendous fan base here, as has been well documented, but we're just getting used to the amazing now. And it's pretty fun. Now we get what everyone else is talking about.
I was going to say, before I get to the next question, everything that happened, it was like when the first touchdown happened, okay, that was kind of improbable. And then the 2-point conversion, okay, that was more improbable. Then the next thing, more improbable. And it just kept going and going. It was amazing. I just don't know what else to say about it. It's amazing.
That's just it. There were 5 or 6 consecutive rolls of the dice that had to come up a very specific number, and Seattle got it. I mean, it's like rolling 5 Yahtzees in a row. It was an amazing series of events, and you're absolutely right. If any one of those things goes differently, if Clinton Dix doesn't misplay the 2-yard Hail Mary that they throw on the 2-point conversion, if Brandon Bostic does his job and blocks Chris Matthews instead of trying to cover the onside kick, all of these things. Shoot, there's a play no one talks about. There's a play that on the final drive after Seattle took the lead by 3, where Jordy Nelson catches the ball, and he's one-on-one with Byron Maxwell, and there is no one behind him. And Maxwell made the tackle, but if he doesn't, that game's over. So, there was just a ton of things that had to go right, and then as soon as they got the ball in overtime, I can honestly say that, the trepidation was gone. It felt exactly like their game against Denver earlier this year, where they went to overtime, won the coin flip, and just sliced them up on the way down the field, and that's what they did. And it was really curious. The one thing that I would question the Packers on, and maybe this is more Dom Capers than Mike McCarthy, but on that touchdown pass, they were in full zero press coverage, which is just insane for on your own 4-yard line. And I don't know if it was just because, Marshawn Lynch had 140-some yards after halftime, and they were gearing up for that, but that was curious. As soon as Wilson saw one-on-one with Curse, he kept to it, and ball game.
I'll tell you what, before we move on to the next question, speaking of Marshawn Lynch, I've been a Buffalo Bills for my entire life, so the only thing I have to say to you is you're welcome for Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, shoot, man. Yeah, thank you. It's, yeah, and what's funny is, there's at the time that the trade happened, Carroll had just come in, and Lynch was, I don't have to tell you what Lynch's relationship in Buffalo was. You know it far better than I do, but, we were wondering if a 4th rounder wasn't too much for him. Was this guy just going to be trouble? Was he a burnout? What was he? And I, honestly, after the last few years of having him in the Northwest, I just think that he's a really unique, very difficult to understand guy, and his worldview doesn't fit the fans' perception of what an NFL player should act like or do, and so we love him for it. But I got to imagine. B-Smoke started in Buffalo, so I got to imagine that that's something you guys feel kind of proud about.
It's tough to not get too deep into it. It's just tough to look back and see what they got from him and see what he ended up becoming and going, wow, you kind of whiffed on that one hard.
Yeah, and it was, and I think looking back, and both Pete Carroll and John Schneider have talked about this, it was very important when they came in, because keep in mind, they set an NFL record in each of their first 2 years for roster moves. The top 2 numbers of roster moves in NFL history are the 2010 Seahawks and the 2011 Seahawks. And he was trying to tear down everything he inherited, and it was very important that he have guys whose personality he could build the team around. One of the reasons people thought Pete Carroll wasn't going to make it in the NFL is he came in and unabashedly started building the Seahawks the same way he went about building his college programs. He recruits, and he talks about it as a program, not a franchise, and all these kind of things. And at USC, it was very important to have tone setters on both sides of the ball, and I think he was hoping that's what Marshawn Lynch would be. But I don't think either of them were planning on him, turning into a top 3 running back in the NFL.
It's been amazing to watch, for sure.
Yeah.
Everything about the Seahawks is amazing to watch at this point. Come on now.
Yeah, I try so hard not to sound like a homer when I talk to folks from other fan bases, but I really think that 20 years from now, when I'm looking back on this, this is going to be a pretty gilded era where, we're looking at a team that finishes number one in DVOA for 3 straight years, that leads the NFL in scoring and yards allowed for 2 straight years. That is the best pass defense. That is redefining. Honestly, I truly believe Seattle has redefined how teams are going to build their secondaries. And it's crazy. There's just this unbelievable amount of belief from top to bottom. And I think one of the things that allowed Carroll and Schneider to do this so quickly was they brought in a ton of young guys. The team is still so young, and these aren't hard-bitten veterans that are going to brush off a rah-rah college coach. These are guys fresh out of college, and this is their first NFL experience. And, it's easy for Pete Carroll to shape what their expectations as a pro should be. And it's just been so cool. There's this crazy stat that Mike Sando from ESPN posted the other day, and it listed the amount of positional starts this season by players over 30. So if you consider you have 22 positional starts every game, right? Times 16, that's whatever number. Of all of those, it's about 400 starts. The Seahawks only made 10 starts by a player over 30, which is far and away the lowest in the league. So
how many? How does it say you cut out there? What was that number?
10. It was a total of 10, and it was all Kevin Williams after Brandon Mebane got hurt. It's pretty much all of those starts. And so this is a team that is not only good now, it's not one that is going to be broken up quickly or guys are going to fall off their career ledge or anything. I mean, this is, as crazy as it sounds, this is a team on the upswing.
Now, with Pete Carroll facing New England Patriots, obviously his old team, and looking to beat the Seahawks, looking to become the first back-to-back champions in 10 years, do you believe there's any extra added pressure from things like that?
Oh, I'm sure there is. But after last year, there's no real cause for concern with us as fans, just because we saw how well they handled the pressure. There was a lot of storylines last year. There was crazy behind the scenes inner locker room turmoil, supposedly. There's enough sources that talk about what happened right before the Super Bowl with the Seahawks to legitimize the notion anyway. But with Percy and Golden Tate and Russell Wilson and a few other players and some fighting and Golden Tate playing with a black eye and all these things, and we didn't hear any of it, and they still went out there and beat the best offense in history by 35 points. So I got to imagine it's a quieter clubhouse for them, and I'm sure there would be a delicious amount of revenge for Pete Carroll to beat his replacement in New England. But I think that ultimately, I don't know if it will affect his game planning any.
Now, if you're just tuning in, joining us now is Jacson Bevens of FieldGulls.com, at Jacson Bevens on Twitter. Now, the one thing that came out of the NFC Championship game that was very important were some key injuries to the Seahawks secondary. Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman. Thomas, obviously, he has a separated shoulder, and Richard Sherman has a sprained elbow. Are you worried their injuries will greatly affect their performance in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, of course. I think you have to be. What was really remarkable is both those players playing through the injuries. Earl left with a dislocated shoulder, and missed about half a quarter.
I think I said separated shoulder. He's a dislocated shoulder.
What's that?
I think I said separate. If I did, I apologize. You're a dislocated shoulder.
Yeah. And I've done both, and it's both extremely painful and really, and the part that gets missed is not really pain. I mean, those guys are exceptional at handling pain. It's the loss of functionality in that shoulder and the loss of leverage and strength. And so Earl left with the shoulder injury, missed about half a quarter, comes back, and on his first tackle back, he uses that shoulder to launch Eddie Lacy out of bounds like he was a toddler on a trampoline. I mean, it was an amazing tackle. And so you got to wonder, did that do any further damage? Was that just cortisone and adrenaline that allowed him to do it? once the game is over and the body cools down and the swelling starts and all of that, how is the shoulder in place? Can you get it back in place? So he's kind of the question number one. He's been missing practice. Richard Sherman's been practicing, which is remarkable because if you saw the replay of the friendly fire hit where he got his arm caught in between Cam Chancellor and James Starks, it was a pretty brutal-looking injury. And the fact that the thing that gives us all hope that he should be okay is he went out and covered Jordy Nelson for the rest of the game with one arm. And we're talking about a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, which is probably the best quarterback in the NFL. And Rodgers still wouldn't go near him in that second half. I mean, it was really an amazing thing to watch. So, but if there's any coach out there who's going to be able to exploit whatever limitations they have, you got to think it's Belichick.
It's interesting to see. I was going to say it's very interesting to see because that's kind of the one thing, and I know it's going back to the championship game, is that I almost, looking back on it, it's hard for me to think about it because you wonder if they thought Sherman might be playing coy or if they just were, you know what, he burned us once, we're not even going to try to go that way again. But you got to think if Rich Sherman had one arm,
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I was even openly wondering during the game if he wasn't playing possum trying to go to throw. But then on that final drive, he actually gave up a 4-yard completion to Nelson and had to make a tackle. And when he made that tackle, he did it with just one arm. And at that point, I was like, okay, he is actually playing with one wing right now. And, it was pretty amazing that was still enough to deter what's one of the great passer-catcher combinations in the world right now.
Now, I know a win in the Super Bowl would make this answer a lot easier, but win or not, do you believe that the Seahawks are the next great NFL dynasty?
I think that they've got the best shot at it. I think that they are probably far and away the best positioned for a 5-year run. However, the NFL formula is designed to knock you off your perch once you get there. And that's what makes a team like the Patriots so incredible, that they can win 12 games for however many years in a row. Their ability to turn their roster over and make the adjustments. When Belichick first came up, they were a defensive team, and that's how they beat the high-powered, greatest show on turf Rams, and they clamped down on defense for those first few years when they were winning the Super Bowls. And then all of a sudden, they get new personnel with Moss and Welker, and all of a sudden they're the highest-scoring team in NFL history and have an undefeated season, beating everybody by 50. And, it's amazing how they've been able to adapt. So it's going to take that level of adaptability for them to do it. The league won't always stay how it is. But when you consider how young the Seahawks are, how much room they have to re-sign their stars salary cap-wise, and the fact that there's just a top-to-bottom belief system on that team, and it's so rare in pro sports to get that many alpha male, millionaire, uber athletes on the same page. It's really an amazing thing. So win or lose, I still think that there's no team with a wider window of success than the Seahawks.
And I must say, to kind of go off what you just said, piggyback off it is amazing to see how Pete Carroll has instilled a mindset with that franchise, and everybody on that team is sticking with it. And if you don't, you're out. Obviously, if you don't, you're out the door.
And that's the other thing. I mean, he's got one of the coldest chopping blades in the league. I mean, when he first came in and was cutting people, there were a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of leaders in the locker room that were getting the axe, and it was basically Pete Carroll just saying, this is what we need from this position. Can you do it? If you can't, we got to let you go. Or if you can't do it for a restructured amount of money, we got to let you go. And that kind of pissed off a lot of veterans when he first came in and started asking Wilfa Tutupu and Marcus Trufant and some of these guys who'd been around to take less money if they wanted to stay. They didn't, so he let them go and rebuilt the whole thing in his own image. It is a really, really remarkable thing. And And you wonder, it's one thing to hear Carroll say it. It's one thing to hear the robot Russell Wilson say it. But, there's an interview a few weeks ago with Ricardo Lockett, who's like a special teams gunner and their number 4 wide receiver. And he talked about the Marshawn Lynch run against the Cardinals. I don't know if you saw it on Sunday night. He had that 79-yarder where he broke like 9 tackles.
Yeah.
And on it, Ricardo Lockett blocks, and I mean wipes out 3 different guys on the play. I mean, it's if you ever get a chance to go back and watch the highlight, watch number 83. It's ridiculous. And he was asked about that. How is it that you were able to do that? And he's like, I wouldn't have been able to do it before, but when I first came up, if I had to block, I just made sure I blocked that guy, because that was my job, and then go back to the huddle. But here, he goes, I do it because I don't want Marshawn to get hurt. He's like, I'm trying to protect him. And when I run a route, I am trying to do it so that Russell can succeed. And, we're all out here trying to protect each other and win for each other. And you're just like, man, this is not something that you hear a lot of pro athletes say. It's cool. And then for the Legion of Boom, they're getting all of this attention and all of this marketability for the LOB. And so they get together and go to the press as a group and say, you know what, we don't want LOB to be Legion of Boom anymore. We want it, when you say LOB, it's Love Our Brothers, and it includes all 53 guys on the roster. And it's like, who does this in pro sports anymore? So it really is this unbelievable brother-in-arms type of thing. And I think a lot of it is because of how difficult it is to make the Seahawks roster and how hard training camp is. Kevin Williams, who's a 5-time All-Pro player, after his first training camp in Seattle, said that Pete Carroll's training camps make all his Minnesota ones look like a rest home. So it's, he works you hard, and if you can get through it, it kind of is that elite, military group type of brotherhood where you all know you're there because you're good enough to be there. It's pretty cool.
One last question I have for you before we let you go. Same question I asked the New England Patriots blogger, but obviously the team is different. What are the Seahawks' keys to victory in Super Bowl 49?
I think that they need to be able to get on script offensively. And, as you know, most teams will script out their first few plays. And one thing that Gerald Bevel does that's very frustrating for a lot of fans here, but I really buy into is his first 15 to 20 plays aren't just designed to get yards and score points, but he's kind of like Greg Knopping in that he is setting up plays later in the game. And we saw it in Green Bay. But they'll do a lot of, kind of BS horizontal stuff early in the game that doesn't go anywhere and frustrates the fans. Like, why are you doing this? But then what you see is defensive backs starting to creep, linebackers starting to cheat, and then that opens everything up, and you end up with a quarterback who, averages 11 yards in the air per pass, which is number 1 in the NFL. So it's all kind of about setting up, but Belichick is going to be the hardest coach in the NFL to set up. He's seen it all. So their ability to actually gain yards and get points early is going to open things up. I'm not worried about the defense. They have turned all of the best offenses in the NFL into mincemeat over the last 3 years, funnel them into the cover 3 machine, and it just grinds them up. And so that I'm not too concerned about, but they're really going to have to get on track offensively and be hitting those second-level runs and be completing some early third downs, because if not, I think Belichick may be able to put the screws to Seattle. And I'm a lot less confident in Seattle being able to make up 12 points in 5 minutes against the Patriots than, the Packers.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you for joining me first off.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate you having me, and absolutely anytime you'd like to have me back, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely, and especially my buddy, my co-host, Mr. Perez. He's got a cigar podcast coming up here shortly, so I may have to introduce both of you, so maybe we'll talk some cigars sometimes, and maybe talk some sports and cigars. I feel like you two would hit it off.
Sounds like it.
But for those listening, We have been speaking with Jacson Bevens of FieldGulls.com. Check out his podcast, FieldGulls.com/cigar-thoughts, the dash being a minus sign. He is at JACSONBEVENS on Twitter, and I have been following for the past couple days. I must say, very good follow, so check that out. And thank you again for joining.
Man. You got it.
Thank you again for joining.
Man. Really appreciate it.
No problem, and I hope it's a good game. I'm not going to say good luck to you. I didn't say good luck to the other guy because I'm all about rooting for the good stories. So as long as it's a good game, I'm happy.
Hey, you and me both, man. That's what I want to.
Hey, podcast listeners. The January song of the month is picked by the Queen of Gear, Dawn Semino, is I'm Not the Only One by Sam Smith off of his album, The Lonely Hour, and you can purchase that via our partnership with Amazon. Check this out. The song itself is only $1.99, but take my word for it, there's not a bad song on this album, and I went ahead and purchased the entire album, MP3, for just $6.99. That's right, $6.99. You can find this and other great songs, apps, and merchandise all through the Gear Network's Amazon page with no mumbo-jumbo, no additional charges, and no headaches. It's the easiest way to support this show that you're listening to, baby. Bookmark, save, and share the link, gearnetwork.com/Amazon.
Your heart is on me.
Back here to wrap things up on the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
That's right.
Super Bowl preview. I have to keep mentioning that. It's a very important podcast.
It is a podcast. It is an important distinguishing
Very
element.
distinguishing, yes, because we're going to have people from the New England area listening, from
Right.
Seattle or Washington
right.
area listening.
Hello,
Hello, Washington. Hello, Seattle.
New England. Hello, Seattle, Washington State.
Thanks for joining us.
We appreciate it.
We do appreciate the listens. Canada too. Maybe there's probably some NFL fans in Canada listening.
Hi, Canada.
Hello, Canada. Want to say thank you to each and every single one of you for tuning in this week to this special edition of the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
Yes.
A special thank you to Greg Knopping of Pats Pulpit, at Pats Pulpit on Twitter, patspulpit.com. And then as well, I want to say a big thank you to Jacson Bevens.
That's right.
Who is a writer over at FieldGulls.com. It's just FieldGulls.com.
Right.
And I'm trying to get...
You know, some of you might be thinking to yourselves, during the interviews, we didn't hear Perez much. It's because I'm shy.
He's very shy.
I'm a very shy person.
Jackson, but before I address that, Jacson Bevens, at JACSONBEVENS on Twitter. Now, when it comes to the interviews, Perez is not only shy, but not here.
Yes. I wasn't going to tell him that.
Well, I do the interviews during the week.
Yeah.
Because we're not a radio station, so like
Right.
during the week we have jobs. You know, I do the interviews, then I go to work. Perez is at work when I do the interviews, so
Right. I was just going to go with I'm shy.
we're doing what we can. He is shy, or I just turn his microphone off.
Which I don't think anyone that actually listens to this podcast would ever think I'm shy, because I'm really not.
No, Perez would sit there and say, "Yo, Patriots, you're stupid" or something, and then
I would, but I'm not going to do that.
no, we're professional.
I'm more professional than
we
that.
are professional here at the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
Sorta.
As much as we can be.
That's right.
You listen to the other podcasts, we have some fun things to discuss.
That's right.
But thank you again, every single one of you, for tuning in.
We appreciate it.
If you're tuning in for the first time, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Hi.
I am Ryan Wolf.
I am Mr. Perez.
Stick around for some more. We have fun. We like to talk sports. We have a good time. We are Better Live Than Dead.
You are not.
Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Adios.
Have a good time. Have a good day. Have a good week. We'll catch you next weekend to talk more about the Super Bowl. Have a great day, my friend.